Kakadosh Boker Or Masechet Zevachim Daf Yomi Daf Kuf Amud Aleph 100a1. We're starting on the last line of Tzaditet Amud 99b, where the Gemara says Rav Mari Amar. Rav Mari comes and he's going to give a third answer to the contradiction between Rabbi Shimon if an onen is going to bring a korban pesach or not. So he comes and he says like this. He says, La Kashia, it's not a question. Kan shemet lomet barbasar. One we're talking about where somebody passed away on the 14th. Ukvaro, and then he buried him barbasar. Vekan, and over here, shemet lomet bishushasar. He had somebody that passed away on the 13th. Vekavro barbasar. Im met lomet barbasar. If the person passed away on the 14th and then they buried him on the 14th. So yoma mita tofes lelo midoraita. So then it's going to be the same thing midoraita. Met lomet bishushasar. But if it's going to be on the 13th and then kvaro on the barbasar, yoma kvura is only midorabanan. Then not tofes lelo ela midrabanan. Elmaleh Ravashi Ravmani says Ravashi to Ravmani. Velahadiktani, that which we learned. Amar Rabbi Shimon says Rabbi Shimon. Share tell that you should know. Share Amru, as they said, onen tovel veochel pischo, avalo kodashim. The Chachamim already said that an onen he could be tovel veochel pischo. He could eat the korban pesach and everything, but he cannot eat kodshim. So Elmaleh, why don't we just say Kamina lach ana yoma mita doraita, right? So I could just tell you that we're talking about aninut of doraita. Martalin, you're going to tell me yom kvura drabanan. That we're talking about the yom kvura, which is the next day, which is only drabanan. So kasha, it's a good question. Meaning that if we're not, we have to compare always apples to apples, not apples to oranges. Here, if you're going to tell me right now that it's a different day, the yom mita and yom kvura, so therefore obviously it's not the same thing. So what are you comparing then, right? Obviously you're okay. So he's going to be eating or whatever it is. So Abaye comes and he says, right, lakashya, it's not a question. Kan shemet kodem chatzot, vekan shemet lachar chatzot. It all depends when did he die, right, on the 14th. Remember, the korban pesach was brought on the 14th in the afternoon, okay, after chatzot. So he says, here we're talking about where the person passed away before chatzot. And over there, we're talking about where he was, and onen is going to eat his pesach, is that he died after chatzot. So kodem chatzot, the lo yitchazel pesach, he was never fitting for the korban pesach. So chay le'aleh aninut, so therefore it's going to be chal la'aninut. Achar chatzot, but after the chatzot, titchazel pesach, that he's already ready, fitting for bringing the korban pesach, lo chay le'aleh aninut, there's no aninut, right, to prohibit him from bringing the korban pesach. So because of that, it all depends when during the day of the 14th did the person pass away, whether he's going to be chayav in the korban pesach or not. Okay?
That's right. Even if they'll pass away later, you could eat the korban.
Exactly. No, not earlier. Exactly. No, it's the opposite logic, but the opposite logic though is it makes sense just because exactly the chiyuv, because you were already bar chiyuva. If you're bar chiyuva, you have the obligation, so now that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So ask the Gemara, how do you know that there's such a difference between before and after chatzot? So he says the Tanya was learned in the Braita. La yitama. We're talking about a Kohen that one of his family members passed away. Remember, how many family members passed away from the Kohen that he's allowed to become Mitamemet? Excuse me, Kohen? 7, right? So who was it? It's a married brother, a married sister? Huh? Okay, very good. Very good. Not married sister, right? Very good. Yeah? So it's, yeah. So he says over here like this. It says la yitama. We're talking about a person's not married sister that he's allowed to become tameh for her. La yitama. So he says it's a mitzvah velo reshut. Right? What does that mean? It's a mitzvah for him to become tameh. So lo ratza. What happens if he doesn't want? Imagine the Kohen comes and he says, listen, he doesn't want to become tameh for her. Metamin oto lekulcho. They do it against his will. They tell him you have to go, and they force him. Maaseh Yosef HaKohen, there was a story of Yosef HaKohen, Shemeta Ishto Berev Pesach. His wife died on Erev Pesach. Velo ratza litama, he didn't want to become tameh to her. Venimnu echav HaKohanim, the Kohanim, the brothers went, Vetimeu bal kulcho. They forced him to become tameh. Meaning why? Because the wife was one of the 7 family members, if you remember. So, no, הוא רצה לקבור אותה, אבל שהיא תלך לבד. למה שהוא ילך?
היא מתה.
נכון, אז לא הכוונה שהיא תעמוד על הרגליים ותלך. הכוונה that they should take her, that he wasn't going to participate in the funeral. He thought I meant that she was going to get up and start walking to her grave. No, I'm not talking about, right? I'm not talking about that she's going to get up and walk to her grave. But the kavanah is that other people are going to take her. And then, so we have a contradiction. Ulachoto betula. We said ulachoto. So he says mata mulomar hare shalach lishchot pischo. If you went to do the korban pesach, velamulet beno to do brit milah to the son. V'shamat shemet lomet. And now he finds other family member passed away. Right? Yachol. I would have thought to say yitama that he should become mitameh. אמרת לא יטמא, you said he should become טמא. So יכול כשם שלא יטמא לאחותו, כך אין מטמא למת מצווה. I would have thought to say that just like you don't become טמא to the sister, you don't become טמא for מת מצווה. So תאמר לומר, לאחותו הוא דומה מטמא. אבל מטמא, meaning, המת מצווה is so powerful, that you would become טמא, even though it's a מת מצווה. So says the Gemara, Lav Shema Mina, we're not talking about then Kan Kol Chatzot and Kan Achar Chatzot. That one was talking about before Chatzot, and one is talking about after Chatzot. So therefore, the only way to answer this is that it all depends when it happened during the day. If it was before Chatzot, there was still no obligation of the Korban Pesach, so therefore it's a different halakha than if it's going to be after Chatzot, that there's already obligation of Korban Pesach. So says the Gemara, Mimai, whoever told you that? Who told you that the difference is before and after Chatzot? Dilma Leola, maybe I'm going to tell you, Malecha, Idividi Achar Chatzot. Really, we're talking about after Chatzot, right? Ha Yishmael. Vaha, right? Rabbi Ishmael. He comes and he says like this. He says, this Braita is Rabbi Ishmael, and this Braita is Rabbi Akiva. Meaning there's two different opinions. The time we learned in a Braita, La Yitama, Reshut, right? Divrei Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Chova. Meaning, right? Do you say that it's only a Reshut to do it? That means basically it's only Reshut. That means if he doesn't want to, he doesn't need to, right? Or are you going to say that it's a Chova? That you're obligated to do so. So it comes out, it's a machloke between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael. What is the halacha for a kohen when you have one of these family members that pass away? Is it a chova for him to become tameh, or is it just a reshut? If he wants to, he's allowed to. Meaning he's got a special heter, but it's not that like imamasha that there's a chova. So says the Gemara, Lo sal gadaitach the reisha da Rabbi Akiva ktanila. Don't tell me that the reisha of that braita is going to be Rabbi Akiva. The time was learned to write Rabbi Akiva Omer nefesh elu akrovim. When it says the word nefesh, because it says kol yomei aziro laHashem al nefesh met lo yavo. So when it says nefesh, we're talking about family members. Okay, met elu arechokim. These are the non-family members. So he comes and he says, right, le'aviv eno metameh aval metameh ol mitzvah. So he's not going to become tameh for his father, but he is going to be metameh for mitzvah. Le'imo, right? What does that mean now? Le'imo haya kohen v'u nazir. What happens if he's a kohen and a nazir? Remember, a Kohen has a prohibition of becoming mitamemet, and a Nazir has a prohibition to becoming mitamemet. So he says, Leimo hudenu mitameh, aval mitameh lememitzah. He cannot become tameh for his mother, but he does become mitameh for a memitzah, meaning a Nazir, so yoter chamur me Kohen. A Kohen comes and he's going to be mitameh for the 7 family members, a Nazir does not, but he is mitameh for a memitzah. Le'achiv, what does it mean now to the brother? Shimei Kohen Gadol, what happens if he's a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir? לאחיו עוד אינו מטמא, מטמא ממצווה. לאחותו, מה תאמרו לומר? הרי שהלך לשחוט פסחו ולמול לבנו, ושמע שמת לא מת, יכול להיטמא, I would have thought he's going to become מטמא, אמרת לו להיטמא, he says you don't become טמא. So יכול, I would have thought to say that just like you're not going to be מטמא לאחותו, you're not going to be מטמא for מצווה. תאמרו לומר, לאחותו הוא לא מטמא, אבל להיטמא הוא למת מצווה. Meaning each one of these parts of the pasuk was coming to teach you a different halacha. Okay? So, right, what we just mentioned, we're in Kufa Mubet already, right? 100b. So he says like this. So he says, but you are going to become mitameh from a mitzvah. That means again, until met mitzvah, right? That's according to everybody. So now he comes and he says this. Rabba Amar. Rabba comes and he says, Idi ve'idi le'achar chatzot. Really, be'emet, right? These two braitas, whether it's going to be Rabbi Shimon and everything, it's talking about after chatzot. Velak ashiyan, it's not a question. Kan kolam sheshachtu v'zarku alav, ve'kan le'achar sheshachtu v'zarku alav. It all depends if they did the korban pesach for him. That's the difference. Meaning not before and after Chatzot. Really, we're talking about both cases were after Chatzot. But did they do the Korban for him or not? If they already did the Korban for him, so now he's got the obligation of the Korban, but they already did the Shchita, and they sprinkled the blood. So therefore, he's got the obligation of the Korban and everything. But if it's going to be after Chatzot, but they still didn't do it, he's still one step before. So therefore, he still doesn't have the obligation of the Korban Pesach yet. That means even though it's the time for the Korban Pesach, but they didn't actually do it. So Amalei Rava bar Matana l'Rava. Says Rava bar Matana to Rava, right? Le'achar sheshachtu v'zarku damo. My da'avava. 1 second. If they already did the shchita and they sprinkled the blood, right? So he was already yotzei chovah. So therefore, how are you going to permit him to eat the Pesach? He finished his job. They did the korban. He brought the korban, right? They sprinkled. That's it. Well, now he has to eat. So Amalei, he says, Ravina comes and he says, Zachila psachim me'akva. No. Even the eating of the korban pesach is me'akev. Midrabba baravuna, just like Rabba Ravuna. Right? That's going to be the first answer. Amarle. So Rava tells Ravada Barmatana, Tzayit mai dekama lecharabach. Listen to what your rabbi just told you. Why? Because he answered you well, which means that there's a special mitzvah to eat. A special mitzvah to eat. Okay? What is Rabba Baravuna exactly? My Rabba Baravuna. The Tanya was learned in the Braita, Yom Shemu'ah ki Yom Kevura lemitzvat Shiva u'shloshim ve'la'achila psachim ki Yom Likut Atzamot. Just like the Likut Atzamot, which means like this. We know there's a special halacha called Yom HaShmu'ah. Yom HaShmuah means in the olden days, right? Nowadays it's much more difficult, but in the olden days especially it happened. Yom HaShmuah means what happens if a person only found out that a family member passed away on a different day? So that Yom HaShmuah is like Yom HaKvura. To do with what? To do with the mitzvah of Shiva and Shloshim. There is a halacha of Shemua Rechoka. Shemua Rechoka means that once you only found out after 30 days. And sometimes they're lenient on that because a person that only finds out after 30 days, they only have to do 1 day of Avelut. So for example, when a person's not well, right? This happens many times when you have, like elderly parents or grandparents, and all of a sudden now one of their family members pass away. Now, if they're going to come and sit Shiva, it's not for them. They wouldn't be able to do it. So many times what they do is they purposely wait 30 days. And after waiting 30 days, then they tell them. Because by telling them after 30 days, they only have to do 1 day of Avelut. So they don't do a full 7 days and then Shloshim and then this and that. They basically just do 1 day of Avelut and that's it. That's called Shemua Rechoka. But there's a concept of Yom HaShemua is like Yom HaKvura, to do with the Mitzvah Shiva and Shloshim, and to do with the Achila Psachim and Likut Atzamot. Remember that the day that they take the bones, right, of a person's parents, and they take them, let's say, from here to Israel, meaning they're transporting the body from here to Israel. So therefore, there's a special halacha that they also have to do a day of Avilut. Okay, that's a special halacha. So echad ze ve'echad ze, whether in this case or the other case, whether it's Yom HaKvura or Yom Likut Atzamot, tovel ve'ochel bekodshim la'erev, you're allowed to come and dip and eat the kodshim in the nighttime. So says the Gemara Hagufa Kashya, that in itself is going to be a question. Amarta, you just told me Yom Shemua ki Yom Kvura, that the Yom Shemua is going to be like Yom Kvura, to do the mitzvah Shiva and Shloshim, la'achila psachim, ki Yom Likut Atzamot, miklal, so it's mashma, Yom Kvura, filu la'erev nam yelo achil. So it's mashma that you can't even eat it. But then you told me, echad ze ve'echad ze, tovel ve'ochel bekodshim la'erev, that you are going to eat in kodshim in the nighttime. So Rav Chasta comes and he says, Tanai here, it's a machloket Tanaim. Rabbi Baravuna says, like it's not a question. Kan sheshama shemual meto samuch l'shkiat hachama. Here we're talking about that you heard that he passed away right before the shkia, right before sunset. V'chen sheliktu atzamot samuch l'shkiat hachama mamash, right before sunset. V'chen shemen lo metu k'rov samuch mamash, they buried him before sunset. V'kan, and here we're talking about that it was after shkiat hachama. Remember, if it's after shkiat hachama, they lost the day. As long as it was before shkiat hachama, ken kovrim b'layla. As they lost the day. So many times they will purposely try to do it beforehand, so that way they gain a day. You understand? It's purposely done. So he says, which one? כן, ברגע שהם ישבו אפילו שעה אחת, זה כאילו שהם עשו יום אחד. כן, לא רק לקבור, הם קוברים והם יושבים, אפילו אם זה כמה דקות. זאת אומרת, קוברים ומיד יושבים. לא. זה צריך להיות כמה דקות, אבל כל זמן שהם כמה דקות שהם ישבו באמצע היום, כן, לפני הלילה זה כבר זה. אז הרבה פעמים, sometimes it happens ממש right before חג, or right before, what do? Quick, they try to do the burial, they try to sit him down, they sit him down for half an hour, boom, that's it, out. What? They already did it. הם כבר ישבו. ואז מוצאים אותם בגלל החג. Right, for example, because of the Chag, or let's say Shabbat, or whatever, meaning that they purposely do it in order to sometimes they need to do that in order to save, sometimes there was a lot of distress, a lot of this, a lot of that. So sometimes they purposely do that to make sure that, listen, that they want to save the day. They don't want to prolong it an extra day. Okay? So he says, right? So we're going to learn from here, right, that the achila psachim is going to be me'akev, meaning that they have to eat the korban pesach. Ravashi comes and he says, "May echad ze ve'echad ze." Right? We said tovel ve'ochel bekodshim. Hachi kamar. This is what we say. Echad yom shmua ve'echad yom likut atzmot. Doesn't matter whether it's the day of the shmua or likut atzmot. Tovel ve'ochel bekodshim le'erev. Right? Ravashi beduta. He says, 1 second, but we don't paskin like Ravashi. So he says, michti ala kai. It was on him. Ze ve'ze mi ba'ele. You're right. We don't go like Ravashi. Ravashi was like, it's not true. That means when they use these words, it means that we don't go like this. Tonight, what is the machloket tanaim exactly? When we learned in the right, until when is the onen? Kol hayom, the entire day. Rabbi Omer calls man shalom nikvar, and that's how we go, like, right? Basically, as long as he wasn't buried, right? That means what is aninut? Aninut is until they don't bury him. So b'may askinan. Says what are we talking about exactly? If you're talking about that yom hamitah, the same day of the death. Mika delet yom mitad defaz the Rabbanan. For two, and furthermore, Rabbi Omer calls man shel nikvara kvaro. The second that he did the kvura, that's it, right? Umika delet le v'achrita yomar. He says that the aninut does not considered right until the mitah, right after what? Even after the death, right, and after the burial and everything. That's it. That's it. We don't have any more. Meaning the second that a person is buried, there's no more anymore that kilu aninut. It's now a velut. So Rav Sheshat says you're right. Yom Kvura Kai. We're talking about the day of the Kvura, okay, which means that it's only the day of the Kvura when they buried him after the day of the Mitah, and therefore it comes out that the Aninut goes until the end of the day, and according to Rabbi, it's until the Kvura itself. Okay, but again, according to him, the kvura, not until the end of the day. Meaning after the kvura, that's it. He's avelut already. It's a different halacha. So Matkif Rav Yosef asks, right? Elahadik Tanida, which we learn Hashomi al Mito Kimla Ketatzamot. So he says, Tovel ve'ochel b'kochin lari mikal diyom kvura filu la'ev nami elo achil. He didn't need it. Who is that? So he says, Elataritz. You have to answer. Until when are you going to do aninut? Koloto ayom. Right ve'layla. Rabbi Omer, kozman shelo nikbar, aval shenikbar belo lelo. But the second that after the kvura, that's it. It doesn't continue anymore, right? And that's what we go like. Remember, we always go that the second that's kvura, there's no more aninut. Samreo kamed Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Gavra Rabba Karavisul Lemahachi. What? Such a great person is going to say such a thing. Lema de Rabbi Lekula. Why don't we go Lekula? Vatanya Matay Mintonin Lav. Kozman Shenikbar. Afilu Mikan Vadas Rayamim. Tivre Rabbi Vachachamim Mintonin Lav Elato Yomivad. Meaning there's going to be a machlokit also. And this actually is a very important halacha. What happens if they didn't bury him for 2 days? Sometimes that happened, especially places like France and other places like that. Sometimes they had a takana that they weren't allowed to bury for a certain amount of time to make sure that they were dead, right? Because sometimes there were many stories of burying them, and then in certain kvarot they used to make like a little tiny string, and on the top it would have a bell, and just in case they would wake up, ding-a-ling-a-ling. Yeah, you never heard of it? No, what do you know? There was a guy. There was a guy in Morocco. His nickname was El Muerto. Well, El Muerto, the dead guy. Why? The goyim, this was a goy. The goyim, they were taking him and the thing, and all of a sudden they started hearing like this, right? They didn't understand what happened. And the guy, they dropped the coffin and they went running. The guy basically came out, he was alive. It was a clinical death for whatever it is, and he was really alive. And he basically came out and he lived for another, I don't know how many years afterwards. And so there does exist such a thing that they think that the guy's dead. Yeah. Yeah, no, mamash. Like they think that they're dead and everything that you want to really bemet, they're still alive. You understand? It's like a clinical death, and they come back. Yeah, it's mamash like that. Yeah, mamash like that. So he comes and he says this. So he says, so therefore there were certain rules that they couldn't bury for a few days. So what happens right now if it's for a few days? So he says even if it's going to be now until 10 days, right? As long as there's no kvura, it's still on end, right? The other shita comes and he says, no. Aninut is only 1 day. Aninut is only going to be 1 day. So he says, Ela taritzachi, but you have to answer like this. Ad matay until when he's going to do aninut, koloto yom belo leilo, that entire day without the night. Rabbi says, as long as he wasn't buried, right? Vim nikpa, but if he was buried, tofes lelo, so it's going to continue in the nighttime afterwards. Samrua come into Rava, they said this in front of Rava, midekama Rabbi yom kura tofes le nidrabanan, mikal yom mita tofes le nidrabanan. So it's mashma, if it's the same day of the death, it's toraita. The Savar Rabbi Aninu Laila Doraita. He says what he holds it's Doraita. Fatanya we learned Hena Yom Ani Yom, right? Asur v'Laila Mutar. During the nighttime it's going to be Asur. During the daytime it's going to be Asur. During the nighttime it's Mutar. Uldorot, and for the next generations, Ben Yom Laila it's going to be Asur according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Omer Aninu Laila Divrei Torah Divrei Shomim. It's only going to be the Rabbanan. So he says you're right. Lolam Rabbanani really bemet it's the Rabbanan. V'Chachamim asu chizuk l'divrehem yotem mishel Torah. Meaning sometimes the rabbis made a special takana even stronger than what it is a doraita. So because of that, that's what they did over here, right? So look in the sikum. Look on the bottom in the footnote. You have the sikum, right? Sikum deot tanaim. Number 1, yom amita mishat amita chal din alilut me'at Torah ad alayla. Right? That means mitzad Torah from the death until nighttime. Next, what about the night after the death? But they still didn't bury him. Aninut b'vaday noega b'layla shelachal yom mitala nechlekot tanaim. If it's going to be doraita or the Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's minat Torah. Rabbi Shimon comes in and Rabbi hold that it's the Rabbanan. Next one, Yom HaKvura. If it's not the same as Yom HaMita, obviously. So it says, Im HaKvura nitakva ad lachal Yom HaMita. So the Aninut continues until the Yom HaKvura, but that's only midirabbanan. And that's why I told you that you would put on the tefillin according to Rav Vadia afterwards. Right? Then the next one, Alayla shelachar Yom HaKvura. Nechlekut tanaim im Yom HaKvura tofes et Laila midirabbanan. Rabbi holds yes, and Rabbanon hold that no. Okay, Yom HaShmua, Hashomea Shemet Krovo La'achal Yom Moto. What happens if he finds out that the person passed away after, right? Shemet Krovo after the Yom Moto. So again, it's only going to be Midrabanan. The Kutatzamot is going to be the day that they're going to move the bones and everything. It's only going to be Midrabanan ad Halayla. Okay, until here we're clear?